Well, eek, 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 everybody. I'm John O'Loughlin. Welcome to McDuff Lives. And tonight it's my pleasure to welcome the group called Protecting the Nest. Of course, that's Amber Connor and Tara Starr and Carol M. And Tara is going to join us in a little while, we hope. She's having a little technical difficulty, so we are going to miss her, but we're going to get started with the show. And thank you for being with us, everyone. Let's see, we have mobsters here in the chat room. Hello, mobster. Your rent is in arrears. And oh my God. Oh, oh no, that's a sad story, mobster. All right. Well, gosh, maybe you should start a YouTube channel. You know?
Yeah, get rich quick.
Exactly. Well, let's catch up with you guys. It's been a month since I've had a chance to talk to you both, and I know you've been busy. So let's see. Let's start with Carol. What's going on with you?
Well, I've actually heard about this really interesting scientist guy who's more of a philosopher, and he's someone that really influenced Lyndon LaRouche. I was surprised to find out, but I can understand why. And it kind of harkens back to our discussions we've had over time, John, on the idea of abundance. It very much his ideas have been suppressed. He's Russian. He's actually Ukrainian, I think.
Well,
But
let's share his name with everyone. You're speaking with
okay, his name is
uh,
Vladimir Vernadsky.
Bernatsky, yes.
Vernadsky, yeah, and he is a biogeologist chemist, and his story is that he's an incredible thinker and just an amazing, brilliant mind. But I think he was born in about 1861, and a lot of his best work was done in the early part of the 1900s. And I think that must have been the beginning of mass spectrometry analysis, where you can kind of see what things are made of. And so his first observation was that, even the simplest cell is much more complicated than a big factory, which was a big thing, of course, in the early 1900s. And he just got really curious about life. And he started trying to figure out what it was made of by, I think you burn everything to ash and then you analyze what it is. And he did it species by species. He was very, very meticulous. And what he found out was that life, species by species, is so meticulously specific in what it's made out of that it just can't be an accident. There's very little wiggle room there, species to species, when you take us all down to what we are. And he realized that it had to be that there was a creativity within life itself that was kind of it would either make what it needed or find what it needed to really come up with what it was. And he was also looking a lot at time too, and how over time, how the biology had changed the geology. Like, diatomaceous earth is made up of all these little skeletons of single organisms. That brought in the whole idea of rocks that can be made out of what we have created, or what life itself creates in terms of matter. But then he moved that idea along to also include ideas and consciousness too, as he evolved his thinking. So he came up with the idea of the biosphere, that it grows over time, that it if it's not stressed. If it's stressed, it can do the big growth where you have to all die off. And if it isn't stressed, it just keeps growing and solving problems and getting what it needs and working things out between the plants and the animals and the water and everything. And that over time, the biosphere has increased. And so he was kind of marginalized because the oligarchs of the time didn't want to think like that, which is LaRouche's whole idea. but he just meticulously proved his ideas. He was a brilliant scientist and moved forward. So anyway, there's a lot more there. He's so interesting, but let's see what else Amber's thinking about.
Well, before we bring Amber front and center, let's add Tara. And is that you, Tara? Hi. Oh, we don't hear you. Check your button and see if your mic is on.
Okay, there we go. How's that? Okay, I made it. Hi, everybody. Hello, happy end of summer. Hate to see it go, but 1 month left, or less than a month.
And the Ospreys will be flying south any day now. It's time for them to leave.
Man, I wish I could go with them. I really do.
Oh, yeah, down to Colombia, you think?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, well.
Warmer than the Northeast.
Coffee, good coffee.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I've never been there. It sounds great, though. Well, it's so good. Glad to have you join us, Tara. And we were just getting ready to ask Amber what's new with her. So let's go with Amber.
So I've been rereading The Creature from Jekyll Island. And I'll say my mind went absolutely just spinning, especially when you get to the part where the describing kind of in a too big to fail. And actually, I would never have thought that so many countries would decide to give up their sovereignty, much like Brazil, for a world government. However, in the chapter where they discuss how much money the taxpayers of the United States have given to forgive debt and to repay their debt, they pretty much are owned at this point. And so people are brought into this, and leaders are more than likely going to say yes to a globalist society because of the debt and the too big to fail, and the few presidents that just kept forgiving large amounts of debt. And I think when they were doing it, it was supposed to look kind and loving and forgiving and godly. But it was actually a way to say, okay, we've reeled you in. You need some more? You need another loan? Because after I reread the chapter, I pulled it up on Audible so that I could play it. And my mind was spinning and spinning, because I always have assumed that when people do something kind, it's out of the kindness of their heart. But when you go down the road a little bit, if they benefit from it, is it actually from the kindness of your heart? Is it you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours? Or was it a setup to begin with? So what made it so difficult for them to pay their debt? Would it be the interest? Would it be that the interest was way too high in order for them to pay back? Would it be the usury? Would that be the trap? And that has made just pretty much my mind explode. And I can't wait till my kids are in high school so we can talk about economics and talk about debt and talk about when it's not necessary, when it may be necessary, especially with the money that we have today. It's a scary step to think that that might change, but then it's also a scary step to think that it might stay the same. So it's kind of, my mind has been reeling, and I can just see how exciting it's going to be to debate my husband and my children as they get older, and just talk about, and we'll probably come up with our own monetary system in the house just to play around with it and look at intentions, and just pick a week where we have bad intentions, a week where we have good intentions, a week where we're helpful, a week where we're stingy, and just see how everybody's motivated and what they do, so that we can grasp what bigger players in this world do, so that maybe we can help those that are more vulnerable to understand that, all that glitters is not gold.
I'll tell you what you do. You each get like a gold coin, okay? And you take your gold coin and you hide it somewhere where they can't find it. And then you write these little pieces of paper, and you make 9 pieces of paper, and each one of them says, this is one gold coin, okay? And then you trade your paper gold coins for their real gold coin to get their gold coins from them. Now, that is how you run a bank.
That's a great idea. We could start that this week.
Yeah. What happens when the bank burns up? The paper is
That's
gone.
another good
That's where
question.
we are now.
Yes.
Well, they don't call it a trust for nothing, you know. It's like, what do we have faith in?
I tell you, but that's one thing I can tell you. If you ever see somebody put his fingers down on the desk like this and go, "Trust me," don't trust him. Don't trust.
Trustbuster.
Okay, been there, done that. Enough of that. Tara, how are you?
I'm good. I'm so glad to see you guys. Like I said, I really, I've been enjoying just the heat waves. I'm curious to see how all the seeds you guys planted, literally and figuratively. It's interesting to see Carol talking about kind of the getting back to the biology of the earth. And then it's funny, Amber, that you're saying about the money, which is like, the age-old trick that money doesn't grow on trees when, yes, in fact, it does.
Right.
And to trick us that it
That's the whole
doesn't,
point.
and sometimes it's, minerals, whatever. But I see change coming quicker than later. That's hopefully. I can't really say much about it because I'm not a financial person, but just, from the climate. And I know that there is, well, definitely thinking about school right now. I know we had, as a group, gotten to talk a lot about things to look out for. So kind of just thinking about this school year, how to approach it, what we can keep doing as a community to keep our communications open and, cross all the different generations, different regions, whatnot. I also noticed there's a bunch of freaky deaky stuff going on, like bed and bath person and the 18th story. Just, things are weird as usual.
I didn't catch that, Tara. The what interest?
Oh, I was saying that there was that Bed Bath and Beyond, the I don't know his position.
The CEO.
CEO. He was the
CEO?
CEO. And he
I guess I didn't understand the story. I saw it in the headlines, but didn't catch it. What is?
Yeah, he jumped from the 18th story of whatever building.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I forget his name. I'm sorry that I'm not honoring him with his name, but just just while everyone's busy. Oh, and I also voted today in the Massachusetts stuff. So there's a lot going on. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, Amber, I think that what you're studying and what I have been looking at too this summer can throw light on each other. I mean, I think it's the idea of scarcity versus abundance. And if you base something on life, which grows and grows and grows, including, the minerals and the rocks are growing because of the life. And then that's turning into soil and et cetera, et cetera. But the consciousness too, it's all working together without somebody saying this is what has to happen from the top down. It just happens, and it's creative and it's problem solving. And when you try to put things in banks and loan them out 10 times, and control everything by that, then everything just starts disintegrating. And now the disintegration has been accelerated. So we'll all freak out and decide, oh yes, please tell us what to do. And we'll become the Chinese. But I just don't think that's going to happen.
We're too stubborn. We're too stubborn.
People are creative, and we can solve these problems if you do it slowly and it comes along and you do it one by one, and we all get together and start thinking about them. But the shift from where we are to where we're going, I'm a little concerned about that. But I think we'll make it, but it could get a little hairy.
So Carol, this is where I'm not saying it's my forte, and boy, I don't like change. I'm a creature of habit. I have OCD sometimes. However, I sometimes do things that are very odd to people until times like this. Mm-hmm. So we build these little libraries There are like these little bitty share libraries in through the neighborhood, and books that we're done with or magazines, we put it in it. This is a perfect time, and people will understand why we do it now. So now it won't be like, what's that? Now it'll be like, thank you. Same with our seed sharing. So we have these little shelves, and we either take seeds that have sprouted, and we will take a piece of masking tape and write with a Sharpie what it is, or we'll just put seeds that we bagged up. So if we bought a bunch of Myers lemons, organic Myers lemons, we're going to save some of those. We'll put 3 seeds in a bag. We'll put a little instruction, and we'll put it on an outdoor shelf that's kind of covered. Now it's not silly. So the things that I normally love to do, I'm not 100% a trade and barter person, but I think it builds friendships. It builds community. And I don't know if it's ancestral. I don't know if it's something that really, when my grandmother, who went through the Depression, told me, don't throw out pencils, don't throw out things, even if you've got a nub, because in a time where money is tight, or you're dealing with our leaders really messing things up and pretending to be stupid, she said, make sure that you keep all the stuff. You don't throw stuff out like pencils, use scrap paper, because you don't want to spend your money on that. You need to spend your money on food. You need to spend your money on necessities. So she taught me that frugality. And before you leave the store, check your receipt. Before you go to the store, make sure you're there for a certain purpose. Make sure you eat a sandwich before you go, so you're not just impulse buying. But, always prepare. So all these silly little things that I do when, everything is great and they're not trying to scare us with scarcity, people are just kind of like, oh, that's hippy dippy. I'm like, I'm not a hippie, but I think it's cool. Now, people will be like, yeah, that's cool. And I'm like, yes, it is cool. Get on board. Let's do this. So I'm very excited about that part. And that will take up so much time. I won't have enough time to worry by doing, within the community and sharing. And we're volunteering time at a food bank that's right down the street. So, and they have, it's in the Black community, and they have a podcast, and it's called We're Not Okay. And they have one, People You Need to Know. So I'm trying to find people in the community to introduce to them, so that it can be people that you need to know. And then also, I'm Not Okay, people who are stressed out. So it's kind of, where they talk about new legislation or lack of legislation. So it's a great little area. This gives me time to do that while we're dealing with this chaos all around us that our leaders pretend they don't understand what's going on. And, it's very hard for me to look and say, well, you're smart, or you want us to believe that you're capable of leadership and that you're brilliant. But at the same time, when you do an oopsie, you pretend it's out of your hands and you don't know what you're doing. You need to pick one. You're either a dipwad or you got your stuff going on. But this little floating back and forth is really getting on my nerves. But I digress.
It's funny that you talk about the seeds and the hippies and stuff, because I have a place I love, a tiny little farmer's market that I can walk to, and it's just little, and it's in the hippie co-op, but it's outside, and it's different people. And the people that are out in the farmer's market are immigrants, Vietnamese, green, they just grow in their yard. There's a mushroom man, it's a interesting group of people. They're always there. But the hippies that run the co-op is so funny, because they are mask Nazis. It's so weird. It's like, what is it?
I'm concerned about this. I'm honestly concerned about this. This is the stuff that kind of blows my mind.
Yeah, it's like, what is this? They're a little bit better, but they're still mostly masked to the people that shop at the store.
What?
What's wrong? They're so far left that they believe, they're like the true believers, and they believe the narrative. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. I don't understand how it makes any sense, but somehow that's what I'm seeing in my, blue hippie community is this.
Well, okay, let me ask you guys a question. I think that, I think we all tend to think that generationally they put these specific things out that they're testing on each generation. Like, do you guys recognize and think that, because, I was born in the 70s, so something about the 50s and 60s, do you notice triggers that
I
you
do.
think, that
All the
may have,
70s bands, all the 70s bands,
but
they
just
were
like,
not only
to like what I'm basically saying is to just blindly follow direction, like in a robotic way that you forgot your way. Like, does that make
Well,
sense?
I think that they've always been vulnerable because remember, when the hippie generation came out, it was against war and it was a beautiful movement until insert drugs, insert sex. So they're very vulnerable and easily distracted and easily able to change the narrative or control. And unless somebody reminded them of that, they can fall into that same trap. And I think it's when someone has a bleeding heart, like they really care and they care about people to the point where they will make themselves uncomfortable and they will do things that seem way wackadoo. But to them, they're helping people by staying masked. And it becomes almost a religion. And I think it's just a susceptibility of that type of mind frame. I mean, 70s rock bands, they're notorious. They were the first ones to say, unless you're jabbed, you can't come to my concert.
Yeah, I think it has to do with sort of the psychological targeting to personalities, that it's so pinpointed. It just your inbox, they know what your hot buttons are, and so that it just gets ridiculous.
And they're older, and I've
How to
noticed
work
the older people were, the more they were told that you're more vulnerable. And so
Right.
they use the older generation because those are the ones that are now in charge. We do it generationally. And so the ones who were told that they were the most susceptible were the loudest because they were the most worried.
You know what else, if I can just add to that, just because, the hippies generation is pretty much mine.
Yeah, me too. We're almost exactly the same age.
Yeah, and I think that I forgot what I was going to say. With regard to
it's the hippie thing.
Yeah, too many drugs, John.
Yeah. All right. Well, all right. The idea of anti-war was real, but at the same time, the war itself was real. And the thing that kept us mesmerized was television. And it was Walter Cronkite. And it was that more than, sex and drugs, which are just distractions. But when you have, this position of authority, your nightly news, telling you this is the way it is, and your parents buy it, and creates just a huge conflict. And so, yes, I hung out with hippies but I wasn't a committed hippie because my parents were still in the true believer, and I was pretty much, just trying to learn. What was I, 18, 19 years old? I just wanted to share that perspective because it's well, it's a long time ago.
Well, this is what I'm taught. That's the answer to my question, actually.
Well, I remember the news being just as fear-based as it is now. I mean, the stuff that really burned into my retinas when I was a kid was the My Lai massacre and the napalm coming on the kids. I mean, there was just horrific thing after horrific thing. And then the assassinations were like one after the other. Every couple of years we had another great leader, just killed with guns.
It teaches us that we're powerless, and that goes along with the drugs and the sex and the distractions. Because if you're powerless, then why not? I was thinking about that just the other day when Daniel Burke, who's one of the LaRouche folks, is running for Senate in New Jersey, by the way. But he was talking about some pot smokers by the side of sitting on a grassy side of the river there, and talking about how all this drugs is a British mind control scheme. You know, they're running it, they're making the money, and the idea is to distract us, to keep us from looking at what's really going on. And I think there's some truth to that, you know.
Yeah.
But even more powerful is the opiates, and you know, that's where that's where I think I have and perhaps it is a kind of a tie to my own period of you know, going to college, and that I think it's really important to distinguish marijuana and THC products from opium and opiate products. I just don't think that it's healthy for the country to combine those two into one thing. Because when you do that, you're playing into exactly what Doug Valentine's book, The Strength of the Wolf, has taught us. And I read the book on my show. And it's a really powerful expose of the fact that the BNDG, the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs, was basically working with the CIA, covering up real opiate transactions while pretending to do their job by busting marijuana dealers.
They're still doing that, John.
And to do that is we should know better by now that is the trap. That is how they get away with it, by pretending to be doing something to, you know, like say it's a gateway drug, right? Marijuana, the gateway drug. So we're going to get rid of the gateway drug. No, go for the opiates. Get rid of that if you want to fight the war on drugs. End of rant.
Well, so I've been reading this book called Fentanyl Incorporated. And what I've noticed is a lot of they know they really can't make marijuana into a demon drug compared to the drugs that are out there, especially on the street. But now what they're doing is they're putting fentanyl dust, and more stronger opiates in the marijuana.
Oh, no.
And they're doing that because so many people had made such a stance, and they saw that hemp, it makes strong rope, it makes great clothes. And with that, unless they can patent it and sell it and make the money and tax it, it's not something that they're willing to allow people to discuss. And when people start to make sense and there's not an argument, and then it becomes difficult for them to justify being more strict on marijuana and allowing opioids and fentanyl to be everywhere, then they have to put it in everything. So they're putting it in prescription drugs where they sell it on the street, and they make you think you're getting a prescription drug, but it's laced with fentanyl. They're putting it in marijuana, and it's just, you know, there's those tasked to get rid of the drugs, but there's those who are allowing it to cross the border in such large droves and put people at such high risks. And I think that if more people would push about opioids and fentanyl and just sidebar the marijuana thing to just force it down their throat to have to address the killers in the room, the opioids and the fentanyls, because everybody in my family, or people that I know, I've got some cousins that like to have fun. They will talk and talk and talk about marijuana. And then they'll say, yeah, you know, opioids are bad. Yeah, my friend died from that. And I'm like, okay, let's reverse this. Let's talk about how that is bad. That is bad. That is bad. And then, you know, because what we're doing is you're discussing what you like about this and not pushing back and using all your energy to say, get these things off the street.
There's a big difference between a natural substance and highly refined. And I really think that it is I don't know how big a part of, but it's the sudden adult death syndrome. There's some of it is that, you know, you just don't know what you're getting.
There's homeless people, they're calling it Blue 52, I think now, where they'll just walk up to you randomly and say, do you have the Blue 52? It's like a street ecstasy or something like that, but they put fentanyl in it, and they want and so people are dropping dead all over the place. There's little high schoolers that will think that they're going to do coke for the first time. They're going to do this drug. And so, sad to say, in today's world, I would say don't do anything, because they are wanting to kill anybody who touches it and say, you did this to yourself. It's a setup, and everybody just be careful out there, because the people who are tasked to take it off the street can only do so much, because it's coming through the borders like a sieve.
And may I emphasize what you just said? They will tell you you brought it on yourself. You did it to yourself. That is their justification for it all. It's almost like it's like a Catholic idea of mortal sin. And the priest says, well, you're going to be tempted in this life, son, but be sure and resist that mortal sin. And then they get you, and it's a terrible, terrible bind. But it's also been going on far too long. And like I was saying about Doug Valentine's book, The Strength of the Wolf, these narcotics guys, they were being used by the CIA, and and working with the mafia, and this was all part of their idea of how to run national security. It's insane, but that's what we talk about. We talk about it every day here on McDuff Lives, and that was what my father had to deal with. And so I want to expose it. I don't know what else to do to try to save the country, because this fentanyl is really, really bad, and we all know that.
Well, those who want us to look at them as shepherds are actually the tempters. So they want it out there. They want all the bad candy out there. They want to lay everything out there, from pornography to everything that would destroy a marriage, a family, your children. And they want to shove it down they want you to fight to try to keep it away. And they want to put up the illusion that there's far too many demons that want all this horrific stuff. And it's like they are taking pleasure in it to see what humans will be strong enough. They're supposed to be shepherds. A shepherd doesn't go and hang a sheep over by a wolf and go, what you going to do about it? That's not how you shepherd, you dipwads. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that drives me nuts. It's like, do you know what a shepherd does? Have you read up on like the task of a shepherd? Because it seems like they want to be labeled a shepherd. They want to be labeled men of God.
But we're being labeled as terrorists. If you're on the left, you're terrorists. If you're on the right, it's terrorists. So we have to lock all the terrorists up. But we need to repoint the finger and call them the terrorists, the people who are at the top that are dealing the drugs, that are destroying our lives and our families. And that terrorists can be anybody, and they can be this hidden hand, and we have to call them that. They think they're Department of Defense guys and attorney generals, but no, they're terrorists.
Speaking of terror,
Tara, I'm an earthist. Tara.
Give it to us straight, Tara.
Well, I just feel like it kind of links back to the Jekyll Island thing, because, it's like following that string of control, and it's interesting because I was going to say, oh, Amber, could you get to the Jekyll Island and do a report, but it'll just be ghosts there, unless we put up a plaque like here. What was it, 1913? I always get my dates messed up with this stuff, but we know the way what it strings along from. And so I feel like, and just, I always have to say, basically every show, just, every day, is to thank our angels, because it's like, not only do they love us, but are they really going to just go through these struggles in their own life and then just give up? It's like, no, we have and I was going to say horrors, but I mean, we have families of angels. And so, speaking of the energy that Carol talks about of connection and, vibration, as we swing up to this next season, and as we kind of, jar up all of our stuff and speaking, I'm sorry that I'm bopping around, but we need to do a stink eye for kids. because we're not going to be able to have this conversation that we have with each other, with them, but we can teach them little stink eye habits. Amber talks about a lot of examples, just, so that we can keep those lines of communication open. We can see what they're working on, what the teacher thinks, just all this stuff, because honestly, to run and hide and go hide under a rock isn't going to do us any good. At the same time, I'm 100% am promoting the idea of talk about different kind of currency, also different kind of education. We don't have to scrap everything. There's a lot of stuff that has been good, and there's a lot of people that just can't jump into homeschooling right now. So we have a responsibility to really, really pay attention and to get these kids thinking for themselves and not trusting just because someone's like an adult or you saw it on TV that it automatically is true,
Yeah, Tara, this last Saturday, so my husband and I have been talking because the kids are being forced to learn things that are way not age appropriate. So we thought, you know what, we're going to take control of this. We're going to beat them to the punch, but we're going to do it in a very responsible way. So we decided to show them the movie Forrest Gump. There were a couple reasons why. One was it gives a historical timeline as he sits on the bench and he discusses his life. That would give them a good scope of a large swath of the past and how not only did we have presidents assassinated, but we've watched civil unrest. We've watched heartbreak. We've watched the South and the North issues. That in itself was so beautiful, but also about what's special about those who are looked at as disabled or slow or maybe low IQ and how amazing they can be. With the eugenics going on, I'm trying to point out that there are beautiful people that may not be, your top Nazi favorites or, your top commie favorites. So, we were able to really show them, what it's like when he first meets the little girl, Jenny, and all the boys won't let him sit with him because he's got leg braces, from his perseverance, from the fact that he was so focused and he just did what was in his heart. He wasn't manipulative. He loved 100%. And yeah, did he get hurt? But he looked at it like he loved regardless. And then you saw Jenny's pain and you saw how she was molested by her father. And you saw that he understood without understanding and that she could trust him 100%. And afterwards, my 11-year-old said, that's my favorite movie of all. There were a couple parts I said, okay, boys, close your eyes. And they said, well, can we go get some more popcorn? Because they like putting M&Ms in it. I'm like, yeah, sure. And so they're excited about that. But it doesn't really show any love scenes that are, lurid. But they even got to see her hippie boyfriend slap her. And he's like, whoa. Like, yes, and it opened up a lot of conversations. And so next weekend, we're going to be going over any questions because we like to let things process for them and then see what they're thinking and how they thought all week at school, like what popped in their head. And then we have a conversation about the things that they processed and what they thought about it and then what we got from it, because we allow them to tell us and then we tell them as adults, this is what we see, without saying, no, that's not it. This is it. Mm-hmm. So we allow them to tell us and then we say, well, this is but I am 47. So this is what I got from it. What about you, Dad? Well, I'm 48. This is what I got from it. And then they'll kind of meld with you in a way where you still have ownership of your children, but in a way where you're allowing them to be themselves. They don't want to rebel against you because you're giving them the freedom to think on their own, but it also counterbalances this wackadoo crap that they're forcing down children's throat. Yeah. So,
Yeah, I think that wackadoo crap that they're forcing down includes what you were talking about, John, which is that idea that people should feel guilty because humans have done all this horrible stuff. So therefore humans are horrible and, you might as well die. That is kind of a subtle messaging. And I'm hearing it more and more from like my scientist friends that are true blue. They're just feeling like we have to do something right away with this climate emergency. And, they're buying that. Right, exactly. And they're feeling guilty about that it's become such an emergency, we have to do something. But it's the same pattern that happened with COVID. This is such a big emergency. We have to make the stupidest decisions anybody's ever made in the history of mankind for the entire world.
I'm going to grab something to show you on this topic.
I always feel like I have to balance myself. I can be very emotional because I do have a big heart. And if I just let my heart run with everything and I don't use my head, I'm screwy. I mean, I literally am just like, but it should be that way. And I sound like a goofy utopian. Like, I've lost my balance. I don't understand human behavior. I don't understand, sociology. And I'm just like, but people should do this. And so I think having a healthy balance of logic and love and just understanding, but temper it with wisdom and just reading up on the human behavior and what people normally do in times of trauma and in times of difficulty. And I think people forget that because they're like, but it should be this way. And then they get really goofy. And so I'm trying to every day say, okay, I had my moment to think with my heart. Let me think with my head. And then be balanced.
Counteracting all those horrible messages is so important, on every level, on kids, on adults. I mean, even if I point out to my friends that they're not like that, they're not like the things they're talking about, and they don't know anyone who is like that, brutal and greedy and all these horrible things. That's not what we see in humanity, really. It's just the people, it's the part that we can't see, this bringing those messages to us.
Well, yeah, they're just lying about all of us.
Over and over again.
Here's what my stink eye noticed, because I have, here in Massachusetts, there's still people that just, who knows what they understand, who knows when they'll talk about it, who knows. But, news, I hear stuff. So I saw this and my stink eye, let's see if I can do this. I'm being bad at it. Okay, so anyway, so it says population connection. And when I walked by it, I was like, oh, wait, what is that? What? Because you think, oh, population control. It is. This says we can end climate change. Open for the solution. We know what solution we're talking about, don't we? And now this was founded in 1968, and it's called ZPG. Zero population growth.
Oh, I remember that.
And you'll be thrilled to hear that they currently have 50,000 teachers using their format so that they can teach K through 12 students in North America about the perils of population growth.
So you see how amazing that is. But here's where the goofy, get this, the same people that are pushing this are actually causing children that they want to have the same philosophy. So you're going to brainwash children to have this philosophy. Well, you're teaching them not to procreate and not to be their own sex. So they're going to die off. So you're essentially making the opposite idea going to flourish, the one that you're fighting. This is how goofy has reached levels of utter goofiness. And I'm just like, do they not see that they're literally telling the children that they're brainwashing, stop having babies? And literally don't even be the same sex. But that's who they're telling. Then the other kids who don't believe in that are going to be having lots of babies. And so that philosophy is never going to make it. Right.
But so they don't see it that way because they don't understand the strength of the human spirit.
But that's why I think it's a psyop.
I have two things to wrap up. First one is that my senior moment finally kicked in. And the point I was going to make a little while ago was this. The reason that the hippie generation is susceptible to the pandemic thingy with the masks, right, is associated with their prior acceptance of the AIDS epidemic. And the AIDS epidemic was accompanied very, very tightly with the gay pride movement. And we all want gay people to be free. And so we kind of took along with the gay pride movement the belief in the AIDS epidemic. And by having a history of associating a real, there were really sick people, and they did die, and they had awful lesions, and it was, and it still happens, I'm sure, but
not very often.
There is so much out there to dispel the whole thing at this point. But that's old news. Nobody's looking at that. So their default position is when, these creepy virus thingies do appear from time to time, and the government does the best they can to deal with it. And so that's what happened the last time, and it's under control now. So we're going to do exactly what we're told. And I think it is the association with the gay pride movement that is so consonant with the hippie ethos of love everybody. That one of the things that the hippies really did not accept in American culture was that gun-toting hero, the diehard guy, the Clint Eastwood. It was like, no, that's not who we want to be as Americans. We want to be the peacemakers. We want to be the ones that live and let live. And so, but I do think that is a big part of the answer of why it is that the people of the hippie generation now so easily go along with what appears to a lot of us to be just a lot of government propaganda. And it's, again, medically and every other way doesn't make any sense to me. But I don't want to get another strike, so that's as far as I'll go with that. So the other thing to wrap up is to get back to Vernadsky. Professor Vernadsky has, as you said very beautifully, a philosophy that basically encompasses the idea that life is alive, that the whole thing is alive, and that it does tend to take care of itself without all of these the interventions that are planned. And his ideas and philosophy were suppressed because they are a direct contradiction of all the principles of the New World Order.
Reductionism.
And so the New World Order philosophers, and there's one that has a book that has the same idea of I don't know if it was the noosphere or something like that.
Yeah.
But at any rate, they, quashed Vernadsky because that's the real answer to life. That's the truth. That's the reality of it. And what you said so beautifully at the beginning, I think if everybody just understood that, hey, just let life happen. Don't think you have to manage it. Well, you said it better than me.
All right. Can I just add on that note that I think that what was happening is that this is good to hear from you guys, because what I believe is that an anti-war thing was happening between all sides, the gun-toting, everybody, and that's what they couldn't have. So they drew the gladio line between the hippies and those patriot, good old boy, whoever, what do you call them? And that's still what's being played out today. I feel like we're in a better position now, but a lot of people wouldn't really put it in those exact terms. And I think that's one of the things that we need to understand broadcast,
Yeah. And my prayer is that we turn away from being the United States of amnesia and we become the United States of free thinking and logically sound of mind people. Because this amnesia stuff that's going on is to our detriment.
Well, John figures out a lot of the history that they lied about, and where piecing it together.
We're piecing it together bit by bit and trying to get it out there. That's for sure. But we are a small group. But it's somehow it's getting out there. I still see it spreading, and I'm getting a little bit back from my community, a little more, very slowly, maybe too slowly, but I think it is turning around. The great big iceberg is happening.
Yeah, we like molasses. It's okay.
Mhm.
Well, that's the Fabian idea, is to be the turtle, that wins the race because
Mhm.
they slow us.
We'll just be the best turtle.
Well, I hear
Plugging.
a
Turtle
bell
Island.
ringing. That means it's 9:00, and I think that's a good signal for us to say goodnight to everyone.
Okay.
Thank you
Thanks
all.
for having us on, John.
Yeah, it
Good to
was
see you
really
guys.
fun. We
Well,
haven't done this for a while.
I'm
Yeah,
going to
thank
have you
you.
back soon if you'll let me.
Oh, we'd
Yes,
love to.
definitely.
Yeah.
Excellent.
You're a great host.